The year is 1299. In the dry hills of Anatolia, a tribal chief named Osman rules a piece of land so small that most maps simply ignore it. He has no navy, no great city, and no gold. Only a few hundred horsemen and a dream. One night, Osman dreams that a tree grows out of his chest. Its branches spread until they cover 3 continents. 600 years later, his name stands on one of the greatest empires in human history. An empire that conquered the city no army could conquer. An empire that ruled 25 million people, from the gates of Vienna to the sands of Arabia. This is the story of the Ottoman Empire, how the crescent moon rose higher than any power on earth, and why even the fullest moon must begin to wane. To understand how this empire began, we must first understand the world it was born into. For 200 years, Anatolia, the land we now call Turkey, belonged to the Seljuk Empire. The Seljuks were powerful, wealthy, and proud. But by the late 13th century, their empire was dying. Mongol armies had crushed them from the east. Their sultans became puppets. Their lands broke into dozens of small territories, each ruled by a local chief called a bey. It was a dangerous time. But for an ambitious man, danger and opportunity often look the same. Osman was one of these local chiefs, and on paper, one of the weakest. His territory sat in the far northwest corner of Anatolia, squeezed between 2 giants. To the east, the chaos left behind by the Mongols. To the west, the Byzantine Empire, the last living piece of ancient Rome, more than 1,000 years old. But look closer at the map, and Osman's tiny land reveals a secret. It sat at the exact point where 2 worlds met, East and West, Asia and Europe. The Silk Road on one side, the rich cities of the Mediterranean on the other. Whoever controlled this corner of the world controlled the bridge between continents. Osman understood this. He could not outfight the great powers around him. Not yet. So he did something smarter. He welcomed warriors, traders, and farmers fleeing the Mongol chaos. Christian or Muslim, Greek or Turk, if you were useful, you were welcome. His small territory became a magnet for talent. And slowly, year by year, the tribe that maps ignored began to grow. The Crescent was rising. Osman died around 1326. He never saw a great city fall to his armies, but his son Orhan did. Orhan captured Bursa, a rich Byzantine trading city, and made it the first Ottoman capital. The tribe now had walls, markets, and a treasury. It was becoming a state. Then, in 1354, the Ottomans did something that changed history. They crossed the narrow water of the Dardanelles and stepped into Europe. Within a generation, Ottoman armies swept through the Balkans, Serbia, Bulgaria, northern Greece. City fell or surrendered. European kings finally understood the danger and sent a great crusade to stop them. At Nicopolis, in 1396, the finest knights in Europe charged the Ottoman lines. The crusade was destroyed in a single afternoon. But every Ottoman sultan, from Osman onward, dreamed of one prize above all others: Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, the richest city of the medieval world, guarded by the most famous walls ever built. Triple walls, 20 meters high, protecting the city for 1,000 years. Huns, Arabs, Bulgars, Russians, all had come and all had failed. No army in history had ever broken those walls. Remember that, because a young man is coming who refuses to accept the word impossible. But first, the Ottomans had to survive their darkest hour. Sultan Bayezid, called the Thunderbolt for the speed of his armies, believed no one on earth could stop him. He was wrong. From the east came Timur, a conqueror in the bloody tradition of Genghis Khan. In 1402, near Ankara, their two armies crashed together. Bayezid's forces were crushed, and the Sultan himself was taken prisoner. Think about that. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in a cage. Bayezid died a prisoner within a year. His sons turned on each other, and for a decade the young empire tore itself apart in civil war. Europe watched and hoped. Surely, this was the end of the Ottoman threat. It was not. And the reason lies in something deeper than any one sultan. The Ottomans had built a system. Conquered peoples kept their churches and their laws if they paid their taxes. Talent was rewarded wherever it came from. And at the heart of the army stood a new kind of soldier, the Janissaries. These were boys taken from Christian villages in the Balkans, converted, educated, and trained from childhood to serve the Sultan alone. They had no family ties, no local loyalties, only the empire. They became the most disciplined foot soldiers in the world, and one of the first armies anywhere to master gunpowder. A single battle could kill a sultan, but it could not kill the system. Within a generation, the empire was whole again, stronger, richer, and hungrier than before. And in 1451, a new sultan took the throne. His name was Mehmed the Second. He was 19 years old, cold, brilliant, and obsessed. He spoke 5 languages. He studied Alexander the Great, the way other men studied holy books. And he had exactly one goal: Constantinople. His advisors warned him, the walls, always the walls. So Mehmed found an answer. A Hungarian engineer named Orban offered him a weapon no one had ever seen. A cannon 8 meters long, firing stone balls weighing half a ton. A gun designed to do what no army could. In April 1453, Mehmed surrounded Constantinople with 80,000 men. Inside, fewer than 8,000 defenders defended walls built for an army 10 times their size. For 6 weeks, the great cannon hammered the walls, day and night. The defenders repaired the damage every night, praying for help from Europe. Help never came. When the Byzantines blocked the harbor with a great chain, Mehmed did the unthinkable. He ordered 70 ships dragged over land, across a hill on oiled wooden rails, and dropped them into the water behind the chain. The defenders woke to see an enemy fleet inside their own harbor. In the early hours of May 29, 1453, the final attack began. Wave after wave hit the broken walls. The last Roman emperor, Constantine the 11th, threw off his royal robes and died fighting like a common soldier. By sunrise, the impossible had happened. The walls had fallen. The Roman Empire, after more than 2,000 years, was gone. Mehmed, now and forever the conqueror, rode into the greatest city in the world. He was 21 years old. The Crescent was still rising. Mehmed did not destroy Constantinople. He rebuilt it. He repaired the walls, brought its people back, and invited Greeks, Armenians, and Jews to return and trade. The dying city of 50,000 became Istanbul, and within a century, it was the largest city in Europe once again. The bridge between East and West finally had its master. The conquests continued. Mehmed's grandson, Selim, turned south and east. In just 8 years, he tripled the empire's size, taking Syria, Egypt, and the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. The Ottoman Sultan was no longer just an emperor. He was now the protector of the Islamic world. And then came the man under whom the Crescent reached its highest point. Suleiman. Europeans called him the Magnificent. His own people called him the Lawgiver. He ruled for 46 years, and under him, the Ottoman Empire became the superpower of the 16th century. His armies took Belgrade, then Hungary. In 1529, Ottoman's soldiers stood at the gates of Vienna, in the heart of Europe. His navy controlled the Mediterranean. His empire stretched across 3 continents, from Algeria to Iraq, from Hungary to Yemen. 25 million people lived under his rule, at a time when England held barely 3 million. But Suleiman's true greatness was not conquest. It was what he built. He rewrote the empire's laws so completely that they lasted 3 centuries. His chief architect, Sinan, filled the empire with mosques, bridges, and schools that still stand today. Poetry, science, and art grew as never before. Istanbul shone, while much of Europe was still fighting over religion. A Venetian ambassador wrote home with a warning. "I know of no state which is happier than this one. No prince is more feared. No empire is better organized." The empire seemed eternal, unstoppable, perfect. The Crescent had never been so full. But here is the truth that Suleiman himself, in his final years, may have begun to understand. A full moon has only one direction left to go. And the very systems that built this empire, the loyal janissaries, the palace, the throne itself, were about to become the poison that killed it. The poison began inside the palace. Every sultan had many sons, and every son had a claim to the throne. So, the Ottomans followed a brutal law. When a new sultan rose, his brothers were executed. It was cruel, but it kept the empire from civil war. Then, in the 17th century, the law softened. Instead of death, princes were locked away in a part of the palace called the kafes, the cage. Imagine it. A future emperor raised in a golden cage. No education in war or government. No contact with the world. Just silence, fear, and waiting. Some princes spent 40 years inside. Then, one morning, the door would open, and a trembling man would be handed the most powerful throne on earth. The age of great sultans was over. Now the empire was ruled from the shadows, by palace officials, by the harem, by whoever controlled the weak man on the throne. And the janissaries, once the empire's sharpest sword, became its heaviest chain. They demanded payments and privileges. They overthrew sultans they disliked. They blocked every reform, every new weapon, every new idea that threatened their position. The army that had once mastered gunpowder before anyone else now refused to change at all. That refusal spread through the whole empire. When the printing press transformed Europe, Ottoman religious authorities restricted it for nearly 3 centuries. While European ships explored new trade routes around Africa and to the Americas, the old Silk Road, the empire's golden bridge, slowly lost its value. The world was changing fast. The empire chose not to. In 1683, Ottoman armies marched on Vienna one last time. For 2 months, the city hung on the edge of falling. Then, at the last possible hour, a Polish king arrived with the largest charge of horsemen in history, and the Ottoman army broke. Vienna was the turning point. For 300 years, the Ottomans had advanced. From that day, they retreated. Hungary, lost. Greece, independent. The Black Sea coast, taken by Russia piece by piece. Egypt, Algeria, the Balkans. One by one, they slipped away. Europe industrialized, railways, factories, modern banks, modern armies. The empire watched, always one reform too late, one war too weak. By the 19th century, European diplomats had a cruel nickname for the empire that once terrified them: the sick man of Europe. They were no longer asking if the Ottoman Empire would die. They were arguing over who would inherit the body. Reformers inside the empire fought desperately to save it. New schools, a constitution, a parliament, decade after decade of effort. Some of it worked. Much of it came too late. The empire survived the 19th century, barely, carried less by its own strength than by its enemies' fear of each other. Then came 1914 and the First World War. The dying empire had one last choice to make: which side to join. It chose Germany. It chose wrong. The war ended in 1918, and the empire ended with it. Ottoman armies had fought bravely. At Gallipoli, they even won one of the war's great defensive victories, led by a young officer named Mustafa Kemal. Remember his name. But courage could not save a broken state. The victors carved up the empire on their maps like a meal. British ships anchored in front of Istanbul. The city Mehmed had conquered with 80,000 men was occupied without a single shot. The last act came quietly. In November 1922, the new Turkish National Assembly, led by that same officer, Mustafa Kemal, soon to be called Ataturk, ended the Sultanate forever. The last Sultan, Mehmed the Sixth, did not fight. Early one rainy morning, he slipped out of his palace through a side door, carrying a few suitcases, and boarded a British warship. 623 years of empire, 36 sultans. It ended not with a great battle, but with an old man stepping onto a foreign ship in the rain. The Crescent had set. And yet, from the ruins rose something new. The Republic of Turkey, built on the empire's heartland, looking forward instead of back. The crescent moon still flies on its flag today, because a moon that sets is not destroyed. It waits to rise again in another form. So what is the lesson of the Ottoman Empire? It was not destroyed by its enemies. Not by Timur, not by Vienna, not even by the First World War. Those were wounds, and for centuries, the empire survived every wound. What killed it was something quieter. The empire that rose by welcoming new people, new weapons, and new ideas fell when it started refusing them. The Janissaries refused new armies. The palace refused new thinking. The empire refused a new world, and the world simply moved on without it. Strength built the Ottoman Empire. But strength did not keep it alive, change did. And the moment it stopped changing, the fullest moon in history began to wane. Thank you for traveling through 600 years of history with me. If this story helped your English, and if you felt the rise and fall of the Crescent, subscribe to EraSpeak. Next time, we tell the story of a nation that refused to die, no matter which empire came for it. History speaks. We help you understand it.